and I am back for another live stream where tonight we're going to be looking at a bunch of feedback we got on a video that I dropped, but also a number of other shorts that I built off of this one idea. Black woman asked me about the Philippines. Specifically, she wanted to know why guys are going to the Philippines instead of looking for women in the U.S. And it was an interesting conversation because normally you don't really get to hear two people have a conversation about this. It's usually kind of a shouting match. One person's traveling and another person is pointing the finger at them and cursing them out for traveling. Well, that's not what this conversation was. This conversation was me traveling. Wasn't really even I wasn't broadcasting that I was traveling out to the world. Sure, if you follow my channel, you'll know that I advocate going to the Philippines. I think that you can find great wives over there. But I'm not a zealot. I don't run around hunting other people's channels to tell them that, hey, you need to come and you need to go to the Philippines to find wives. I don't do that. This woman actually came to my channel because she wanted to have a conversation with me about the Philippines, why I was choosing it. She had a lot of questions. And I tried to drop a lot of good information for her about why I go, about why the guys who are in my channel go. And it was a great conversation. So we are going to go through all of the feedback on that. Going to entertain all the questions people have. But I got to take a sip because it's Tuesday night. That was Alexander Valley Vineyards. It's a little bit bitter, but you know what? I can work with it. Okay, so woman asked why I am going to the Philippines. Why are guys traveling to the Philippines? And we're going to go through all the comments people have had about this, line by line, question by question. Should be pretty fun because some people were just out of their mind with the things that they were saying. But part of what I did is I chopped the video up into some segments to cover some of the different things that were discussed. And so we're going to take this, we're going to kind of bounce around because one of the things I talked about was scams. Now, the woman who I was talking to is a woman named Sheila. As just real quick backstory into Sheila, Sheila met me like over a year ago. Met is a loose word. I went on Kendra G's show, and Sheila was one of the people who reached out. Now, at the time I didn't make the connection because, that was over a year ago. But there was a Sheila who was in my comment section, and, she had great comments. I do a lot of stuff about Biden versus Trump. She's a good keyboard warrior. And she called and she wanted to talk about the Philippines. And she said, hey, you know what? You want to make it a live stream? That's cool. And that was where I realized it was the same Sheila from before. So it was a pretty good conversation. But one of the things that Sheila talked about was this whole idea of a scam. And she kind of said, aren't the women in the Philippines trying to scam you? And I was letting her know that, it's a weird idea to say that women in the Philippines are after you for your money. Because part of what I was explaining to Sheila was, look, in the States, it feels like women are after you for your money. First date needs to be a little bit extravagant. Women want to know kind of financially what the benefit is of them dating you. So if you're saying that, and I got my washing machine going on, my dishwasher in the background, so if there's noise, that's what it is, got to deal with it. But I was explaining to her that, in the States, women want to know how much money guys are making. They, when you talk to women about what they're looking for in guys, one of the first things that comes up is income. Now, I'm not saying the Philippines is any different in terms of what they're looking for. But as far as the scam, scam's kind of a funny word. Because if I've got to take a woman out on 10 dates in the States, before I know whether she really likes me or not. I'm spending money on her. In the Philippines, I don't have to do nearly that much. You'll know if a Filipino likes you after date one. They really don't waste time. Sure, they're probably dating you because they like the lifestyle that you can provide. Um, but the funny thing is, the worst scam that I heard, kind of traditional, is that a Filipina will look for an old man to marry because her idea is he's not going to be around that long. So she marries him. She supports him. She's the good, loyal wife to him. And then when he dies, she's rich and she's going to go off and live the second phase of her life. From a scam standpoint, if I had to choose between a young beauty who is going to actually support me and be loyal to me, and then tell me, and then bounce out, I'm going to choose that over someone who might, marry me, divorce me, sue me for a lot of money. We got, okay, I don't want to butcher the name. It looks like Borchel Siles. You'll have to explain. You got the J in there, but I'm not sure what the origin of your name is. David Gilliam, how you doing? So for Borcham, what I'm doing tonight is, this one's more specific. I did an interview with a woman who wanted to know why guys are going to the Philippines as opposed to just staying in the States and looking for their wives here. And she volunteered to do the interview. I wasn't asking her to do it. She wanted to. I posted it, and a lot of people have had some feedback about it. So I thought, you know what? Let's live stream it. If people want to understand what was going on, they can. We'll have the conversation. We'll go through all the comments. She had some interesting questions she wanted to ask about why I was going to the Philippines. I don't think she understood the issue from like a guy's perspective, and so that's what I'm sharing. David Gilliam. So what did I say? Is it Gilliam? I'm assuming it's Gilliam and not Gilliam. But again, I don't know the origin of your name, so origins can matter as far as how some of those words are pronounced. Give me a phonetic for how you pronounce it, and I will try to respect that. So kind of back to the idea, she was really asking the question, are Filipinas scamming? And I was kind of laying out, like, okay, if a woman marries an old man and takes care of him until he's dead, is that a scam? I don't think that's really a scam. Maybe she's just in it because she wants the inheritance, but I still don't think it's a scam because he's getting what he wants. Someone who's with him and taking care of him until he's dead. How many times do we see guys who are successful getting married to women who basically are in it for the will in America? I'm not saying that's all women. I don't think that's most women in the States. And it's not most women in the Philippines, but sure, that scam exists. Yeah, the whole notion, Borchel, of scam, that's a very loose word. I'm calling it a scam just because I'm saying she's not in it for the man, she's in it for the money. But everybody's got their eyes wide open. That guy knows that she's not with him for him. And she knows that, he's not with her, just for her personality. It's like, look, you got a hot body. I got a big bank account. We can make this work. What I have seen is that the Filipinas who kind of, there's actually a name for that. It's like the 4Bs or the 4Gs. I don't remember. But the Filipinas who do that are actually pretty darn loyal. So as long as you sign them up, you seem to be, on the path to a happy last, decade of your life. I don't see a problem with that. Okay. So who cares if you're old or young if you can't get ready? Man, whenever you get to the point where that's an issue, they've got pills for that. So, yeah, if you really need it, you can get by. Love Miss Maya, how are you doing? Didn't Anna Nicole Smith take care of the 90-year-old guy she married until he died? Yeah, look, there are lots of, there used to be a name for it, the Black Widow. Marries a rich man, collects when he dies, moves on to the next guy. This is not a new concept. So I don't really see a problem with, oh, shoot, okay. Before I always forget. If you like the content, click like, click subscribe. I do a lot of pop-ups. Click the notification bell so you can be alerted when they pop up. Um, I'm still experimenting with like schedule and when it makes sense. So that'll at least give you a notification of when it happens. But that said, coming back to the scams, one of the scams I hear is those scams that I see are more online scams. That's what you got to watch because some guys are just silly. They go online, they meet a woman, and that woman's asking the guy to send them some money before they've met in person. Starts off with something small. Hey, can you send me $2? Can you send me $5? $5 in the Philippines is a lot more than $5 in the States. I mean, you could buy I don't know. You might actually be able to buy a week's worth of groceries on $5 if you shop right for it in the Philippines. You get your bag of rice, you get a couple of things on the side. In the States, you're thinking $5, that's nothing, I don't care. And that's how it can start. Starts with $5, and then it slowly progresses to, hey, can you give me 20? Can you give me 100? That is a scam that gets used in the Philippines. The other thing, I wouldn't so much call it a scam. I would just say that there are some guys who are approaching their relationships with Filipinas and they're just being really naive. I've seen guys lose lots of money because they meet a Filipina, they fly over there, they're with her for like a week. And based on that week, they decide to buy her a house, a $30,000 house, $40,000 house, under the assumption that she's going to be loyal and wait on them until 1 year later when they can get back to the Philippines. Those don't end well. Those women decide, I've got a house in my name. This guy's not going to be here for a year, and I got plenty of guys who are right here, right now. I'm going to go mess with them. Now, did that guy get scammed? I don't know. I think he was just dumb. He shouldn't have like throwing that kind of money at a stranger is inherently risky. But some guys are doing it. So, yeah, there's some scams in the Philippines. I don't see anything going on in the Philippines that I don't see happening in the States. If anything, I see less of it in the Philippines because the women there are looking to get married. Whereas in the States, you got like the Sprinkle Sprinkle Club, which is more advocating dating and exploiting a guy and not giving him anything in return. So that's a little bit of a difference between the Philippines and the States. Let me come to some comments here. Life isn't about marriage. Isn't about marriage, okay. All relationships will come to an end one day, whether it's by choice or force of nature. Yeah, if you get married, you're either going to die or you're going to get divorced. I agree with that. Life isn't about marriage. Yeah, I agree with that too, but we have to recognize that for a lot of people, life is about legacy. A lot of people want kids. Big driver of marriage is people wanting to have kids. And for people who do want kids, do want to get married to have kids so they can have that nuclear family, there can be the whole challenge of saying, I want the family, I want the nuclear family, but I'm nervous about jumping into a marriage, not because I'm nervous about marriage, but because I'm nervous about divorce. I don't want to get divorced. I don't want to get wrecked. I'm trying to, as much as I can, limit the risk. That's a big part of the reason I see the guys who are going to the Philippines are doing that. For anybody, actually, as an aside, for anybody who follows the content regularly and knows Steve, who goes by Dano Junkyard Dog in the chat, Steve's actually in Hong Kong right now. His Filipina is working in Hong Kong. He flew out there. They're getting married. I think they're getting married on the 5th. He's going to be live streaming it. He might be able to drop in live in like 20 minutes or so to share what it's like in Hong Kong, since I don't think he's ever traveled outside the state, outside the country. So we'll see. But the idea here is the guys who I see going to the Philippines are going there for wives, and they're bringing the wives back, and they're generally pretty happy with them. More to come on that with some of the other comments. Triple X, if you like it, then put a ring on it. I agree. I can understand. Let me not say that. I understand that sentiment. I think the question though becomes, how quickly do you have to put a ring on it? Because for some people, the question isn't so much, are we looking for marriage or not? It's, what's our time horizon? If you're looking to get married in the next 12 months, and I'm thinking, look, it's going to take at least 2 years, we might both want the same end goal, but our process is different. Because you're in a hurry, and I'm being a little bit cautious. So agree with the sentiment, but understand this. My stairs are wild. Oh yeah, I've got a. I need to. I had a guy come. I had carpet on these stairs, and I had somebody come in and paint, but then I needed to take the carpet out. So it's like, look, drop the carpet. Uh, I live in Hoboken, New Jersey. It's a very interesting little spot because it's 1 square mile. It's a tiny little town, but there are 50,000 people in this 1 square mile. So Hoboken is built up. Everybody's living in condos. You don't have houses in Hoboken. And I have a 2-story, 2-bedroom place. So, yeah, you want 2 bedrooms where I am, you got a bedroom on each floor. That's just how it is. Some people are lucky enough to kind of buy 2 buildings and renovate, so they got 2 bedrooms on one floor. That's actually kind of rare, though. But back to the comments. Oh, yeah, we were talking about the scams, and somebody actually made a comment on my video where he said he knew a guy who got scammed just like what I was describing. And he says, ironically, he's from New Jersey. So he's surprised he fell for the okie dokie. I don't know what being from New Jersey is going to do to protect you from the scams. I think some guys are just a little bit naive in that, that's going to get them. Doesn't matter whether you're from New Jersey, California, Texas. If you are starved for affection, sometimes you can let that blind you. Because let me tell you something. When I was in, Dan and Steve was just commenting on this. One thing that you're just not used to is what it's like to walk around someplace like the Philippines. I kid you not. When I was in the Philippines, I was there for 2 weeks. I saw tens of thousands of people. Not many Westerners, and definitely not that many black people. I would say the whole time I was there, let's say the total number of black people I saw was like 6. And some of them were half black, half Filipino. So the moral of that is I really stood out. Wherever I went, I stood out. People stopped and stared. They're very friendly, but you will feel like a celebrity when you're in the Philippines. So you're suddenly getting all of this attention. And I made a comment. For me, the Philippines is like this pleasantly backwards universe because the women who I find the most beautiful over there aren't thought of as being especially beautiful. In the Philippines, like, what do I like? I like a woman who's thin, who, she's thin with, brown skin and the long hair. I'm pretty much happy. Most of the women over there look like that. It's the Philippines. They're all thin, long hair, brown skin. That look is common in the Philippines. So over there, guys see women like that and think they're plain because that's every day. They like women who are kind of Western, who are a little paler, pointier noses, Western features. That's what they consider to be special. So it's funny because I'll go over there and it's like, okay, the women who you think are the prettiest aren't the ones who I'm interested in because they look like the women in America. I didn't fly all the way around the world to find women who look just like the women back home. I wanted something exotic. And the exotic women, exotic to me, don't think they're anything special. So you'll talk to someone who you think is a drop dead, a 9 or a 10, and she's friendly, she's bubbly, she's pleasant. And you're like, wow, this is nuts. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to, you have, pretty privilege we talk about over here, where the women who are beautiful and know they're beautiful act like it. Over there, you get the pretty woman, but she doesn't have the pretty privilege. She just acts like a normal woman. So that becomes a very appealing aspect of hanging out in the Philippines. It's just the way they act and what's available to you. But coming back to some of the other comments about the scams, someone said gold diggers are worldwide, bro. Yeah, that's true. Gold digger is funny though. Okay. If a woman wants a man who makes more money than her, is she a gold digger? I wouldn't say she's a gold digger. She wants a guy who makes more money than her. That's preference. Now, if she just wants the money and she's going to try to figure out how to scam him out of a bunch of money and then, exit stage left, all right, now we're talking about a gold digger. But if she marries him and she's loyal to him, well, that's not really a gold digger. She just married a guy who makes more than her. I've heard women say they want guys who are doing better than them. I've heard some guys say they want women who are doing better than them. I don't fault either one for it. For me, it's more about balance. I don't. I'm in a comfortable position where, at this point in my life, if I had a woman who wanted to be a homemaker, I could do that. It's like, look, as you can, I have a home. You can move in. That'd be easy. But I want there to be balance. So it's like, okay, if I'm doing part of this, if I'm carrying the financial load, do something to offset, compensate. You be the homemaker, I'll be the breadwinner, and we can make that work. I think it's when you get someone who wants a lot of benefits but doesn't want to offer anything in return. That's where it becomes a problem. That's where you feel like, this is a gold digger because she just wants stuff. She's not giving anything back. So understand where he's going. I don't meet many gold diggers. I see a lot of them on YouTube, but YouTube's not real life. So yeah, I wouldn't say I've met a lot of gold diggers in the Philippines. I've met women who, they will trade up to find the best guy available to them, but they're not just in it for the cash. They will actually be loyal to the guy. Well, they will be, let me say, supportive of the guy as long as he's their best option. Some people are questioning, yeah, and a lot of people heard and understood what I was saying about the scams, and they're saying, look, I don't consider that a scam. Guys are saying, if I meet a woman who, is, let's say, if I'm 40 and I meet a woman who's 20 and she's gorgeous and I got a dad bod, I know that she's looking at my bank account and saying, you can give me the lifestyle I want. And she knows I'm looking at her and saying, you can be the kind of woman who I want to spend time with. You're like you're a trophy. So if they can come together and make that work, then I say, why not? Are we talking about gold diggers? Am I a gold digger then? Can guys, well, I would need to know your situation, Kevin K, to know if you're a gold digger. Kind of depends. Who are you dating? How are you dating? Kind of what's going on. No, and while I'm at it, since I don't know how often the audience refreshes, click like, click subscribe if you like this. And I do a lot of pop-up live, so click the notification bell so that when it pops up, you'll be aware. But yeah, can a guy be a gold digger? Sure. What's the Casanova? That's sort of there was a name for it. The guy who's dating the older women because they're successful. They got a lot of money and he wants it. They get this young, hot dude. He gets access to a lifestyle he can't afford on his own. It works. I don't know the math on this, but I don't think there are as many guys who approach relationships that way as women. I could be wrong, but I don't see a lot of guys talking about that on YouTube or anywhere else for that matter. I do see a lot of more women talking about it than men. And Kevin K, you said you're dating the love of your life. Well, if she's the love of your life, then it's hard for me to bucket you in as a gold digger. If you're dating someone who makes more money than you, so what? That doesn't make you a gold digger. It's really, are you just in it for the money, or are you also in it for the person? Sounds like you're in it for the person. So I wouldn't call you a gold digger. If someone else is, well, I'd kind of challenge them to tell me how they're getting to that. Because you could be with people for a lot worse reasons than because you love them. And the Suravids said, yeah, I don't think that it's common for it to be the other way around. I rarely see the boy being the gold digger. Yeah. And she offered to provide for me in the future because she has an amazing career and sadly I don't. So you're not alone, Kevin. True story. I work in marketing. There was a woman, this is going back a ways. She had a really high up role in the marketing department. She made a lot of money. She was married to a guy. Guy was like a plumber or an electrician, something weird. Well, not weird, but for her, normally the people who were in those roles were dating other professionals. They didn't typically date guys who worked contractually. So it was odd for her, but they were happy and they knew each other since they were like in college. Um, Funny thing is, you know, she was the breadwinner in the household, but they had a very productive relationship. One thing she did, she didn't invite him to company functions because he generally didn't feel comfortable. The conversations people were having weren't the kind of conversations he had. And it was funny because I met the guy, and we had a great, he showed up at a company function, and she kind of approached me because she was letting me know, like, hey, he doesn't normally like to come to these. He's a beer and sports guy. A lot of these people aren't, but I know you're a beer and sports guy. And it was like, enough said. We sat back, we had a couple of beers. We were literally, it was a great conversation. We were talking sports. Who do you think's going to win? He was ragging on my Cowboys. I couldn't really blame him because the Cowboys weren't doing that well back then. It was just, typical guy talk. So there are situations where guys make less than their women, substantially less. Doesn't make you a gold digger, doesn't make you a bum. Just makes you a guy who's making less than his woman. There will be more of that in the future, just as you look at salaries and where things are going. Let me see. Yeah, Kevin K, I'm only in it for the love. Feels like you're heading down the right path, Kevin. And then Bashir Vids. Good for you, Kevin. Glad you found the one. I am too. What sports teams do I like? Okay, so I'm from Texas. I live in New Jersey now, but I grew up in Dallas, so I am a diehard Cowboys fan. It is almost impossible to grow up in Dallas and not root for the Cowboys. So I've had a lot of good years, had a lot of bad years. Is what it is. But that's my team. I like the Rangers, but I'll admit, I like the Rangers. I like the Yankees. I like a lot of baseball teams. Baseball, I'll just kind of appreciate who's around. I'm a big tennis fan, so tennis is not teams; it's individuals. And as far as I don't really watch hockey, but then as far as basketball, I just like to watch the playoffs. So of all the teams that I root for, the Cowboys are the one that I love the most. Let me see. Kevin K said he's happier than ever, finally, after 28 years. Yeah, kudos to you, man. A lot of people are out here looking for love and not finding it. So if you've got something, my advice would be hold on to it because it's rare, is what I've experienced. Kevin K, I'm from the Netherlands. Nice to meet you, fellas. I've been to what is it, Utrecht in the Netherlands, in Dagmar. I was in the Netherlands for a day. That was a long time ago. Really friendly place. I had to be careful because I got off the Eurail and apparently I was near some college, and there was some guy who was like, "Hey, a black guy. Hey, have you ever been to the Netherlands?" Like, no. I guess I look. I guess I do look like a tourist. I don't know where I am. I'm trying to figure it out. He started talking about, "Hey, you got to come to our party," and I was looking like college party. They're gonna be drunk, getting wild. This guy was throwing out the red carpet like, man, the women at this party are gonna love you. And I just thought, if I stop here, I'm not gonna leave because this place looks like it's a whole lot of fun. But I'm trying to get someplace. I got tourist sites I'm trying to see. I don't want to say that went to Europe and I just spent my time partying in the Netherlands. Don't get me wrong. It looked like a whole lot of fun, but that wasn't the objective that I went there for. I wanted to see the sights, so I had to stay focused. Netherlands? Don't sleep on the Netherlands. That place looked like it was a blast. Yeah, he was, he saw me getting off the train. And when I got off the train, I was trying to figure out where I was. So I had this lost look to myself. And he just walked up, he started talking to me. We were talking for a couple of minutes. Then he started talking about Hey, I got to make sure you enjoy the Netherlands. You should come to this party. Um, it was kind of, it was like a college party type vibe. So it was interesting, but wasn't what I was looking for. Let me see. Let me catch up. Are there any teams you think suck? There are plenty of teams that suck. Like, what sport are we talking about? Tell me the sport, and yeah, there's some crummy teams. There are crummy teams in every league. Let me see. He just invited you out of the blue. Yeah, that was it. So he just randomly said, man, I want you to enjoy the Netherlands. Come party with us. But let me get back to. Oh yeah, so part of this, some of the comments. One of the things the woman I was interviewing was asking about, and her name is Sheila, was like, what's the appeal of the Philippines? And I was explaining to her that, guys, Western men do not understand the advantage they have when they go to the Philippines. It's insane. Steve is talking about it because he's in Hong Kong right now, and he was commenting on how a lot of women are staring at him, and he suddenly feels like he's a whole lot more handsome than he ever thought before. And I said, dude, that's Southeast Asia. You'll get a lot of that. You're exotic. Let me explain it in a way that is relatable if you've never been. Guy who I love to follow is Leonardo DiCaprio. Love watching that guy. Leonardo's about 50. He's always dating some young, hot model who's like 25. Leonardo, he's famous, he's rich, he's got the looks, he's got, this incredible history, all these great movies he's made. Leonardo just dates beauty after beauty after beauty because he can. He can walk. Leonardo DiCaprio can probably walk in any venue he wants, and the women are going to be after him because of who he is. He's special. When I'm in the Philippines, I didn't feel like Leonardo DiCaprio, but you know what? I felt a lot more like Leonardo DiCaprio than I did like regular old me. When I'm in the mall and there are 1,000 people in the mall and I'm the only black man in the mall, they're looking at me. I stand out and they're interested. The US dollar is really strong in the Philippines. If you're making $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month, you're rich over there. You can live a very comfortable lifestyle. I'm not talking getting by. I'm not talking middle class. I'm talking you are well-to-do in the Philippines with that much money. So you're suddenly sitting around, you're rich, you're exotic, you're probably tall over there because the average Filipino man is like 5'4", 5'5", somewhere around there. So if you're taller than that, you're taller than average. I mean, I'm 5'11". I was a giant over there. I was like an NBA player. So imagine going someplace where you're suddenly a tall, rich, exotic NBA player. If you're in the States, you can understand what people will respond to you like if that's what you're offering. You go to the Philippines and guess what? That's what you're offering. So you can, so let me, any sport. Okay, so I'll come back to that. Leo is always dating models. So Basura asked, did I attract any of the ladies over there? Now, when I went to the Philippines, I went there to meet someone. It's kind of a funny story. Oh, and let me always remember, click like, click subscribe, click the notification bell if you haven't and you like what you're hearing, so that when I do pop-up lives, you'll be alerted. Now, here's what happened when I went to the Philippines. Let's say about a year before I went, I started thinking about it because I was hearing all this stuff on YouTube about passport bros, and I was curious, but I thought, I might go to the Philippines, but I've never been. I've never even talked to somebody who's from the Philippines. So I went to this online dating site, Pina Love. It's not that good anymore. It used to be pretty good, but now there are just too many scammers. And I started talking to women who were from the Philippines because I just wanted to see where their heads were, how they thought. Over time, most of the women who I met, I didn't keep talking to because I just didn't feel like we connected. But there was this one woman who I started talking to early, and we just kept talking. I liked her sense of humor. She had a great personality. over the course of like a year, we just kept talking. We had a great connection. And I finally got to this point where I kind of had 2 weeks that I could take on vacation, and I thought, I want to go to the Philippines. I want to finally go see it. So I just happened to mention to her, I said, look, I'm going to be in the Philippines. I'm going to be in Cebu. I knew she was kind of in a province on the outskirts of Cebu. And I just said, I'm going to be here these 2 weeks. I don't know if you're free or not, but if you are, we can meet up. And she does offshore work, which essentially means that like she'll travel to Korea on a contract and then she'll come back, travel to Japan on a contract, come back. She was in between contracts. So she said, you know what? If you come in these 2 weeks, yeah, I don't have a contract and I don't have to start one, so we can hang out. So I went, I met her, and we hung out like the whole 2 weeks. We hung out. Funny thing is, and she was great. She is a really great woman, but she doesn't want to leave the Philippines. And I had told her like, my life's in the States. I'm not moving to the Philippines, but I'm coming to visit, and we'll just kind of figure things out. I was in the Philippines with her, and there were lots of women, lots of beautiful women who were checking me out, who were kind of sending signals. I mean, one of the most obvious was I was in a shoe store in the Ayala Mall. There was this woman working at the shoe store who was drop dead gorgeous. I mean, a stone cold 10. She was so pretty that the woman I was with, Lynn, actually said, wow, that woman's really pretty. And I didn't say anything, but I was thinking, yeah, you're right. She's the prettiest woman I've seen since I've been here. And she's just working in a shoe store. Now, while we're there, Lynn is standing right next to me. And I think this woman is looking at Lynn and looking at herself and thinking, hey, I'm prettier than her. And so she was being a little flirtatious to the point where I thought, wow, this woman's really not shy at all about what she wants to do. I thought Lynn might get offended, but Lynn was just like, I'm not worried about that. He's with me. He's not going to leave with you. To the question, were there beautiful women checking me out? Yes. Some of them would have been happy to snatch me right out of Lynn's hands, which was interesting. I wasn't used to that, but that is something that you can experience. You go to the Philippines, you want to meet a good woman, just go to the mall and shop around. Go to the shops, try to find some sandals. You'll run into plenty of women, and you have a built-in introduction. You say, hey, I'm trying to shop for some shoes. Done. Now let me see. Alan Ant Farm. Welcome, Alan. I have a question. I am not trolling, but I am from Canada, so I am not in the States. I was looking at your videos, and you mentioned black women a lot in your titles. Is it for views? So the black women piece is kind of new. I don't normally get into like black versus white or any of that. The only reason I'm doing it, some of it I was just curious because I just did an interview with a black woman named Sheila where she asked me a lot of questions about the Philippines. And she had some questions that were more specifically about me as a black man than me as an American man. She got into things like, are you from Africa? Have you considered traveling to Africa? So she was taking a very specific look at the black angle of me traveling to the Philippines. And since she went down the path of asking me about, why a black man was choosing to go to the Philippines, I just tried to capture the essence of that by saying, hey, a black woman asked me about, the Philippines. A black woman wanted to, know if the Filipinos are scamming. I started out with that. I was just curious to know if I said, a black woman asked, I could have just said a woman asked. I just wanted to know what would happen. But the first video I launched behind a black woman asked this question took off. I realized, when I say a black woman asked, a lot of people suddenly tune into this more so than I was expecting. I mean, if you go through my content, you'll see I've talked about traveling to the Philippines for like a year now. And this is the first time I've ever said, like, a black woman asked this or a black man commented. I mean, that's just not normally the way I approach it. However, since so many people are now commenting, I just stuck with that. Great Lakes trains. Okay, Great Lakes is getting into a fun topic. Who's going to win the election 2024 in the U.S., do you think? Yeah, I do a lot on the election. I love talking election. We can totally pivot to that for a minute. And if you just popped in, click like, click subscribe, click the notification bell if you like what you're hearing, so that as I do more pop-up lives, you'll hear more. So, who I think is going to win the election? I think that Biden is going to win the election, and I'll tell you why. First thing you have to understand is this: 2024 is a rematch of 2020, and Biden won in 2020. So if the exact same people go to the polls and they vote the exact same way that they did last time, we already know the result. Biden's going to have about a little over 300 electoral votes. Trump's going to have a little bit over 230 electoral votes. Biden's going to win. That's just the math. Trump has to win states that he didn't win last time, or he won't win. I do think that Trump is going to win Georgia. I don't think that Trump is going to win Pennsylvania. And so then this whole election is going to boil down to one state, Michigan. And Michigan should get called at around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on election night. If Trump wins Georgia and he wins Michigan, game over. He wins the election. He's going to have 270. You got all these other states that have to get called, but basically there are states that always vote conservative, states that always vote liberal. Like, I already know which way Texas is going to vote. I already know which way Montana is going to vote. California, Washington, already know which way they're going to vote. Trump wins Michigan and he's got Georgia, he's got 270. It's over. If Trump doesn't take Georgia, he loses. Don't think that's going to happen. So it's going to boil down to Michigan. And if Trump doesn't take Michigan, he's done. Now, here's why I think Biden's going to win Michigan. And this isn't partisan. This isn't me saying I want one outcome or the other. This is just me analyzing what's happening. Everybody, well, not everybody, people will remember, or not, Joe Biden stood on a picket line for United Auto Workers in Michigan a couple of years back. I didn't understand why he did it at the time. I thought, it's President of the United States. He's got more important things to do than stand on a picket line. Why is he standing on this picket line? He's got people he can send to do that, if he even needs to send people. Now, I'm not saying he didn't agree with their cause at all, but I am saying that he knew that was a great photo op. And I am saying that Biden said, you know what? Michigan, he knew several years ago, Michigan is what this is going to come down to. So he got on that auto worker line, and now here's what the Michigan voters are going to be looking at. You're going to have a group of people who are saying, okay, Trump is telling me what he wants to do to make Michigan better. Got it. But Biden stood next to me on that picket line and helped me improve my working conditions so that I can feed my family. Now, personally, I'm assuming that's going to have more sway than, like, what promise are you going to tell somebody that's going to overcome the other guy standing on a picket line right next to them advocating for them? That's the thing. I think Biden knew how important Michigan was years ago, and he planted those seeds. And so now, if he wins Michigan, he wins. Whoever wins Michigan is basically going to win, because the other swing states generally, for these last two elections, go the same way Michigan does. Wisconsin's going to go the same way. Arizona's going to go the same way. That's it. So that's what I think Trump has to. That's what I think Trump has to overcome if he's going to win. And I just haven't seen what he's pulling out of his hat to win Michigan. People can disagree, but my question is going to be, what do you think Trump is going to do to win Michigan voters when Biden stood on that picket line next to him? That's the question. Yeah. So we've got, I'm happy. Yeah, we can totally pivot. I wish we had better candidates. They're both too old to rule the country. Biden's 81, Trump is 77. They're old. Yikes. I don't want to. Let me see. We got Nate Hamill. Trump, 45 and 47. I'm not saying it's not possible, Nate. I'm just saying I don't see how Trump is going to win Michigan. He might, but he's got to do something amazing to pull Michigan out of the hat, and I haven't seen it yet. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean that, right now he's kind of distracted. He's got the hush money Stormy Daniels case to deal with. But he's got to do something. I think that he's behind in Michigan. You can't trust polls are trash. I don't trust polls. Too easy to manipulate them. But that's what it's going to be. And then we have Great Lakes trains. Good points, my friend. I agree to disagree. We need more of this in our country. Yes, we do. That's part of what I try to do a lot on the election. Honestly, I try to spend more time on the election than not. I was talking about Passport Bros mainly because I did an interview and I wanted to post it, and I was kind of experimenting because I started using this new software. And since I had the interview, I thought, well, let me start putting out some videos about this to see how this software performs. Most of what I talk about is the election. Basuravids, I was never aware about how powerful Michigan is. Not a state I think about very often. See, that's the thing. You can literally, if you map it out, and this is what's so funny about this election. We basically had this election twice already. We had Trump versus Clinton in 2016. We had Trump versus Biden in 2020. So what we have is we have a very clear map. There are states that voted Clinton, Biden. There are states that voted Trump, Trump. So you can say, look, these states are voting. There's no reason. I don't see any state that voted Trump twice changing their mind. I don't see any state that voted Biden twice changing their mind. So there are only like 6 swing states that matter. And I think Trump's already got Georgia. I don't see how Trump loses Georgia. If he loses, the only way he loses Georgia is if he just fumbles. If he loses Georgia, then he just you don't deserve to be president if you lose Georgia, because you should lock that up. I think Biden is going to lock up Pennsylvania. It's not going to be as decisive a victory as Trump's going to get in Georgia, but I think Biden's going to get Pennsylvania. However, Michigan, because it's not so much about I forget, what's Michigan, 16 electoral votes, something like that. Michigan is going to be you're literally going to be looking at these two guys who are close to 270. And Michigan is basically going to be what decides if Trump gets over 270, because if he gets it, he's there. Or it's going to decide that he's not going to get to 270, because if he doesn't hit that, he's not going to hit the other. So he will literally just kind of be sitting on, 200 and, well, let me not say. There are some things that are hard to predict. Some states divide up their electoral votes. Let's say he'll be hovering a little bit below 270 and trying to figure out how to pick up a big state. But none of the other swing states are going to be as big as Michigan. Very diverse everywhere you go. Nate Hamill, check your savings from 2019. I'm assuming you mean compared to now. Here's a funny thing, Nate, about the economy and how people are. Trump has been better for in general. This is a generalization. Trump has been better for small towns. Biden has been better for big cities. And when you look at the way they vote, if you look at, I did a map where I showed the way Pennsylvania voted. And it was funny. Most of Pennsylvania voted Trump, if you just look at the area on the map. But the big cities voted Biden. And the big cities had, if you add up the total number of people in the big cities versus the total number of people in the small towns, there were more people in the big cities, and that's what the tip of the iceberg was. If you talk to people about who was better for their individual income, a lot of people in the small towns say Trump. But a lot of people in the big cities say Biden. And it's just, there are very different philosophies, so both make sense. Here's something to keep in mind if we just talk about the economy in general. Trump was good for the economy. Biden was good for the economy. In general, that doesn't mean he was good for you as an individual, but if you look at the economy as a whole, they both were good for the economy, just in different ways. The economy is funny because we got to remember that when George W. Bush Jr. was in office, we were in a recession. Housing market collapsed, people were being laid off in waves. The economy was in the toilet. The economy got better under Obama, and then it got better under Trump, and it took a hit because of COVID. So Trump was trending along, doing a great job. COVID hit, and the economy went into the toilet again. I'm not blaming COVID on Trump. I'm just stating the fact. COVID hit, economy went back into the toilet. We got back out of that. Then you see under Biden, the economy's doing better again. It was this kind of very straight trend line of the economy just getting progressively better. And if it wasn't for COVID, people, I don't think Trump would have lost. Well, I don't think Trump would have lost 2020 if it wasn't for COVID. I don't think he would have lost if it wasn't for COVID, and I don't think he would have lost if he told voters to vote by mail. Because remember, Trump told people to show up at the polls. He wanted the big red wave. He lost 3 swing states by like just a couple of votes. He was saying, "Hey, I'm looking for 27,000 votes in states that have like 4 million people." Could he have gotten 27,000 votes if he just said vote by mail? Yeah, he could have. I think that's what bothered him the most is knowing, oh shoot, I lost this election by just a couple of votes. But that's the stuff that can make or break an election. And Nate's saying way too much inflation though now. Yeah. So here's how inflation works though. If costs go up, and this is why I say big cities versus small towns. If my income stays constant and the costs go up, you know what? Inflation's hitting me in the pocket. If my income goes up and costs go up, well, okay, people are complaining about inflation, but I'm looking and saying, is my situation bad? Like, personally, I feel like my situation is better, so I'm not complaining about inflation. That's why I say big cities versus small towns. It's two very different things, and that's what the election is boiling down to: is who's got more support, the guy who's representing benefits for the small towns, or the guy who's representing benefits for the big cities. And I don't know, but I do know this: Trump has to convert some people, because if the election, this is a rematch of 2020. So if everybody votes the same way they did in 2020, we're going to have the same result. I'm just happy to have a conversation without people getting. Yes, exactly, Nate. That's why what I try to do is I try to create a place where everybody can talk. I don't want people hating each other. I've got friends who are Republicans. I've got friends who are Democrats, and we can all talk because we can agree to disagree on some things. We can agree to see other people's points of view. If I look at my friends who are Republicans, I look at my friends who are Democrats, what I can say about them is they are all voting for their personal bank account. And for some people, Trump's better, and for others, Biden is better. And I don't fault anybody for who they vote for. I just want to make sure people vote. So Biden-Trump is going to be interesting, and I cannot wait. I'm going to be streaming on election night, and I am going to be very focused on 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because that's when Michigan should get called. Or that's when we at least get our first insight into what's going on with Michigan. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be looking at that, and I'm going to be saying, here's who's winning the election. Because everything else should fall into place. I mean, Trump should win Georgia. Biden should win Pennsylvania. All the other states are going to basically vote the way they always have. And we're going to be looking at Michigan and saying, who's the president? So that will be a very interesting point in the night. Before we move on, click like and click subscribe if you haven't and you're interested in the content. Part of what I will say, I did videos about Biden and Trump. And I asked specific questions because I wanted to trigger people. So I said, tell me what you hate about Biden. That was a video. And then I did another video. Tell me what you hate about Trump. And I just wanted to see what people had to say. Funny thing is, when I asked people what they hated about Biden, they talked about policies. They didn't like the open borders. They didn't like his energy approach. They didn't feel like Biden's policies were America first. That was fundamentally what people said they didn't like about Biden. When I asked people what they hated about Trump, They talked about his character. It was always he's got sexual misconduct allegations, January 6th, failed business deals. Those were the things that they had a problem with about Trump. And it was interesting to me that policy didn't really factor into how they thought about who they were voting for. It was just, I don't like the way this guy carries himself, so I'm not voting for him. That's basically why people said they're not voting for Trump. Um, Occasionally, people would throw a couple of policy things in, but I would say 90% of what they said was his character. Whereas for Biden, it was honestly one of the biggest reasons people are voting for Biden is because they don't want to vote for Trump. It wasn't so much what Biden was doing, it's what they didn't like about Trump that caused them to say, well, I'm voting for Biden. Trump is the story of the election. You're voting for him or you're voting against him. That's generally my take on what's going on. And Nate's saying, hey, policy for me. Yep, I get it. It's a little nervous when somebody's voting against someone and they don't understand the policies they're voting for. That's a little weird. It's what people are doing. It is a little weird, but it is what it is. The one thing I will say though is these are the things that people said about Trump that I found interesting. One person said, if his vice president's not going to endorse him, then how can I vote for him? And I did think that was interesting because Mike Pence, I don't know why he did it, but Mike Pence came out and he publicly said he wasn't going to vote for Trump. Now, Mike Pence also said he wasn't going to vote for Biden. So it's like, well, wait a minute. If you're not voting for Biden and you're not voting for Trump, who the hell are you voting for? That doesn't make any sense. But that was his position. He's like, you know what, I'm not voting for Trump. So if people are saying, I'm not voting, if you can't get your vice president to back you, I'm not going to back you, I'm not going to argue with them on that. And there was one other guy, like Mitt Romney, I think it was. He did an interview and it was weird because he said basically what America was saying. He said that when it comes down to domestic policy, Trump's got better domestic policy. He said Biden has better foreign policy, and he spun he knows the foreign policy better than I do, but he spun it in a way that was interesting. He basically admitted that funding the Ukraine war, supporting the Ukraine war was throwing money in a hole. Like, they're not going to win, and none of the money that we're sending is going to change that outcome. But he said we made a commitment to provide a certain level of funding. And on the world stage, from an influence standpoint, if you say you're going to provide a certain level of funding and you don't, then you lose your credibility. Now, to him, that was a huge misstep if you didn't follow through on the funding that you said you were going to support. That was his problem with Trump's foreign policy. That was kind of interesting to me because it was the first time I heard somebody say, look, throwing money at Ukraine is just wasted. But he explained why he thought that way. And for him, he said that he was voting on character. He admitted it. He said, look, I look at the character of the president. Again, it was weird that he was speaking against Trump because he's a Republican. If I was a Republican and I wasn't going to vote Trump, or if I was a Democrat and I wasn't going to vote Biden, I wouldn't blast that out there. That doesn't help my cause. I was surprised that they were blasting it out because it affects people, because people came back in the comments and said, if this guy's not backing Trump, I'm not going to support him. That was the one thing that I didn't see. I don't see any of Biden's close people disavowing themselves and saying, I won't vote for Biden. They might not be voting for him, but nobody's coming out and making a big deal about it. But then on the counter side, the thing that I heard about Biden that someone said that I thought was interesting got into age. Biden's 81, Trump's 77. They're both old. Biden, they're close in age, but they're not close in vigor, let's say. Biden carries himself a little older, a little slower than Trump. Trump seems kind of energetic, more so than Biden. More so, I think at 81, Trump is going to be a more active person than Biden is. Now, one person had a comment about Biden and said, they weren't confident that Biden would survive a 4-year term. I thought that's an interesting take because that led them to say, who's going to be better as vice president? Now they were saying, would Kamala Harris be a great president? I can't say she would or wouldn't. I don't really follow her that much. I don't think that she's done as well in the PR front as people would have expected. But I don't know what she's doing behind the scenes with operations. She might be phenomenal at operations. I don't see that. The PR around her doesn't seem to be great. I don't have like the warm and fuzzies with her that I've had for some other presidents. George W. Bush had great warm and fuzzies. So I thought that it was very interesting that they were saying, this whole Kamala Harris thing is a problem, and that was their issue with Biden. They didn't think he was actually going to be the man to do the job, and so they couldn't vote for what they felt like was going to be a Kamala Harris presidency because they didn't think that she was the right person. That was an interesting take. And that's part of what I love about doing this is you get some of these interesting takes where people just come in and you're like, I didn't think about that. That's interesting. Oh yeah, let me again remind people, click like, click subscribe if you like what you're hearing, click the notification bell. So when I do my pop-up lives, you'll be notified since it's just going to be a quick pop-up. Let me see. I don't care personally how things are said, but just what is said. Yeah. And I get that. Nate, I totally hear you on that. I just have to acknowledge that there are a lot of people who don't think that way. There was a guy in the comments section. It was funny because he asked me why I was even bothering to ask the question. He was like, Trump 2024, why are you even asking this question? It's stupid. And I just said to him, read the comment section. Look at what people are saying. Half the people think like you do, and half the people think differently than you. And he came back and he said, okay, I've read the comments. It's actually kind of depressing now that I've read the comment section to see so many people who don't understand. But my point was, not everybody's in your situation. Some people are going to look at the world the way you do. Some are going to look at it differently. And that's why some people are voting Trump and some people are voting Biden. Nate said he agrees that the Ukraine is a waste. Yeah, it seems to be, they've said it's a waste of money. But it's kind of like credibility. It's sort of like, if you owe somebody a debt, even though they're about to move away, like, are you the person who pays that debt because you owe it? Or are you the person who says, well, they're going to move, so if I just duck them for like a week, I won't have to pay this? He was positioning it kind of like, look, I owe this debt, so I'm going to pay it. Otherwise, the next time somebody says somebody brings something up, if I say, hey, I'll pay you, they're going to go back and say, nah, you promised to pay these guys and you didn't. So I don't really trust you. You've lost a little bit of reputation. That was his point. Hedro Storm, what have the Democrats ever done to expect the black vote? That's an interesting question, Hedro. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things here because that is a very interesting question. My true story. I grew up in, I mentioned earlier in the stream, I grew up in Texas. Very true story for me. I'll talk about my personal experience. When I grew up, I thought that all black people voted Democrat. Like when I was a little kid, that was my mindset. Every black person I knew voted Democrat. The only people who I knew who were black and didn't vote Democrat when I was a little kid were rich, or they were like troublemakers. They were the kind of people who, anytime there was an event, they were the person who was starting trouble, who was always arguing a different point of view just to be difficult. Those are the only two types of people who I expected to see vote Republican as a little kid. I had never stopped, it was like I was in my teen years before I even thought about the Republican Party. It was just, it just wasn't what we did. But as I got a little older, I started thinking more about policy and kind of predicament. I said, well, wait a minute. Let me stop just defaulting to Democrat on every single ticket for every single issue. It's like, who's actually better for me? And like, I stopped and I thought about it. But for a lot of people, they grew up in a world where oh, if you're black, you vote Democrat. They don't think about it. It's just a reflex. Like, this is what I do. What's funny is if you look at the sentiment for Trump right now, I would say Trump's got more black support now than anybody has had since like Colin Powell. Colin Powell, admittedly, Colin didn't run for president, but there was a lot of enthusiasm around, ooh, is Colin going to run for president? Because if he ran for, if Colin Powell ran for president, he would have got a lot of the black people who said, I vote Democrat, would have voted Republican to say, wait, I want to see what the nation looks like if there's a black president. Like, to be able to check that box and say, I was there when the first black president was elected, yeah, he would have gotten the black vote. There are a lot of Trump supporters in the black community for a lot of reasons. Now, some of them are getting into policy and saying, hey, I've looked at Trump's policies. I think Trump's policies are the best policies for America. I'm voting for him. Some are voting for Trump because they're disappointed in 4 years of Biden. They're saying, you know what? I want to see what Trump can do. I think Trump's going to do more for the country than Biden has, and I'm going to give him my vote. I don't want 4 more years of this. So I don't think that the black vote is as democratic this time around as it was last time. And I also don't think that Democrats can just count on a black vote over and over and over at elections moving forward, because especially with the explosion of social media, more people are talking about issues and more people are starting to say, is this really the candidate who I want? I don't know if this Democrat is the candidate who I want or not. So we'll see. I think most black people are going to vote Democrat, but if you do the percentage, making this up, if it was 95% Democrat last time, it might be down at like 90 or 85% this time. The woman I was talking about earlier, Sheila, who I did the interview with, at the beginning of the long video, she comes out and says she's a Trump supporter. She doesn't get into her reasons, but she was very clear. She supports Trump. And you can look at her comments on a lot of videos and you'll see she advocates really strongly for Trump. Let me see. We have Shadows West saying neither Dems nor Republicans. Okay. So is that tell me you're voting. If you're not voting, then I'm encouraging you to vote. If you're voting independent, I don't advocate for independent because the independent's not going to win, but I do advocate for voting. Voting independent is better than just sitting on the couch and not voting at all. Let me see. Love Miss Maya says, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. I spent 2 years in San Francisco. And literally, I remember being a kid and the man walked up to me and told me that I better vote for Clinton because I'm black. Yeah, see, that's, all right, true story. Had a sister-in-law. They're divorced now. She voted for Trump in 2016. What was that? Yeah, she voted for Trump 2016. And there was a big discussion with a lot of family members because they were shocked. They were saying, wait, what do you mean you're voting for Trump? You're black. You got to vote for that time it was Clinton. She's like, nope, I think Trump's got the best policies for America. So already we're starting to see it. The Democratic hold on the black vote is weakening, and yeah, they're going to have to if their strategy for winning is to count on, black voters to get them over some humps in some states, that's not going to be the stronghold that it used to be for them. They're going to have to think about that. Would I like to see a younger, I'm assuming you mean a younger president. Yeah. 77, Biden is the oldest president in history. It's a fact. Now, we're living longer, so if you look at the way it works, like as we've progressed along, the presidents have gotten older. That's just the timeline. We're going to eventually one day we're going to have a 90-year-old president. It'll eventually happen. We're living longer. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I mean, let's face it. If Biden wins, he'll be 85 when he comes out of office. So is it really that hard to conceive of a president who's in office at 90? Not really. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen right now, but that's possible. I would love to see. I would love to see younger guys. I would love to see the energy that they can bring. I'm not one of the like. I don't want a 40-year-old president. That's just me. I don't think you've been around long enough. I want an old dog who's seen enough, knows enough. But I don't need you to be 70. I mean, if you're 50, hey, great, works for me. I don't remember how old Clinton was when he did his first term. Actually, I'm gonna look that up because now I'm curious. How old was Bill Clinton when he first became president? 40. Oh, so Bill Clinton was 46. Okay. He had that youthful energy when he came in. He went on Arsenio Hall show and played the saxophone, which was weird. I was a kid. I thought, wait a minute, president's playing the saxophone. The president is cool. That changed my perception of the president. I always thought of the president as being stuffy and formal. But as a little kid, I'm like, oh wow, this president's cool. I like this guy. You don't need much to impress a kid. So yeah, I like the fact that younger presidents can bring an energy and an enthusiasm that some of the older presidents, just can't. Let me see. Great Lakes is going independent. Okay. So you're going like RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is not going to win. The only way RFK Jr. wins is if somehow Trump doesn't get to run and it's Biden versus RFK Jr. I don't see that happening because I think it's Biden versus Trump. Then maybe RFK Jr. Maybe. That's the only way I could see it happening, though. Candidate take over the main Democratic or Republican candidate. Let me see. Let me see. An independent. So yeah, independent. RFK Jr. could kind of take over the Republican space if somehow Trump is not able to run. I think that's why he's still kind of hanging around. Is he's hoping that like these legal cases cost Trump the Republican nomination, and then he can take it. That's what I think he's doing. But kind of a waste. I get it. I think it's a waste of time. Trump is going to be the Republican candidate, and we just have to move on. Accepting that. Mr. Data. Hey, welcome, Mr. Data. I'm a centralist. Politics has gone too far, brother. What do you think? Politics has gone too far. Yeah. I think that partisan politics has screwed things up. I think that politicians should be advocating for America. But whatever, politicians have started advocating for their parties. Take a look at Congress. How many shutdowns do we have? How many times do we get right to the edge of a shutdown and then suddenly we refund things? And it's not because there's a real issue. It's just because one side doesn't want to approve another side's bill. Not even because they don't agree with the bill. It's just the other side came up with it. We've gotten to the point where it feels like the parties hate each other. Like you can't have a conversation with somebody who's from the other party because it turns into a fight. It turns into this loud screaming match. And it's not supposed to be that. We're supposed to be able to talk about, whether funding companies so that they pass the income down to their employees is a better way to help America than lowering costs so that employees can buy more stuff. Like the pros and cons of those sorts of things are supposed to be what we do. But things have become so partisan that you can't even have the conversation. Here's a funny thing that if you don't know what Chat GPT is, I'll encourage you to take a look. If you've heard about like college kids being able to use software to write their essays for them, that's one of the things Chat GPT can do. Chat GPT, though, it's a great answers tool. You go Chat GPT, you start plugging questions in, it spits out answers. It's better than Google for a lot of things because Google sends you to websites and says, look at these. ChatGPT says, forget all that. Here's the answer to your question. I went to ChatGPT and I wanted to know, like, I was looking at climate change. And I basically asked ChatGPT because I was going to do a video on this. I said, tell me all the reasons why people should be for climate change. Tell me all the reasons why people should be against climate change. Like, I just wanted to have a map of the good and the bad so I could look at it for myself and, draw my own conclusions. ChatGPT is woke. Literally, this is a software tool that's supposed to give me an answer. It told me why climate change is real, and it said it cannot take a conversation about climate change being fictitious. It can't take that seriously. It will not give me answers for why I should argue that climate change is baloney. And I thought, wait a minute. This tool's not supposed to do this. It's not supposed to have an opinion. It's just supposed to be, it's supposed to be a typewriter. Like, spit out the lines. Tell me the answer to my question. That's what I'm here for. It's opinionated. That tells me that somebody who was programming ChatGPT was liberal and wanted ChatGPT to be liberal. That's how politics have gotten so out of whack. We can't look at things objectively anymore. Everybody's looking at things through a conservative or a liberal lens. And sometimes that's the wrong way to do it. Sometimes you got to look at the whole thing. You got to look at both sides. But it's becoming very hard for us to see anything except our own point of view. So, yeah, that was a long-winded, yes, I agree. Politics have taken things off the rails. I got to take a sip because that answer dried me out. All right. For everybody who's joined, click like, click subscribe. If you want to be notified when I do my pop-up lives, I don't always do them at the same scheduled time, so it can be random. But if you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more, that's the way to do it. Let me see. Centrist politics have gone too far. Yep. Okay, so we just covered that. One who cares. Greetings. Welcome back. Glad to see you. Love Miss Maya. Bill Clinton was sexy. You better be careful with that. Let's not forget. All right. This is a bad joke. There's no language in it, but somebody made this joke. I remember when I heard this. I was on a plane, and I was going to a business meeting, so I was professional. I was trying to be all professional. This guy said to another guy on the plane, "What did Monica Lewinsky find in her pocket?" He's like, "What?" He said, "A wad of bills." And I stopped and I thought about it and I was like, that was kind of funny. Okay, I can't like walk around with this, but that was a good joke. Just like, wait a minute, a wad of bills. Like that's a goofy, depraved, like, your play on words. But yeah, kind of the funny thing there is, love Miss Maya, you think Bill Clinton is sexy? Be careful, because Bill Clinton's got a roaming eye. Oh man, there's a movie John Travolta played. They didn't call him Bill Clinton, but he was basically Bill Clinton. I don't remember who else was in it. It was so funny because John Travolta as the president was just a playboy. He was sleeping with everybody. And the whole thing, there was this big controversy in the movie because he had this babysitter who he was being accused of having gotten pregnant. He was trying to figure out how to handle it. And he couldn't deny that he slept with her because he wanted to get a paternity test. I was like, well, wait a minute. The only reason to get a paternity test is because you did sleep with her. That means you were sleeping with the babysitter. It's an excellent movie. It was really funny because you're looking at this president, he's standing on the stage and doing all this stuff. But he's just like a dirty dog. He's out there having his fun. He's joking around with his whole staff, basically telling them to sleep around. He doesn't want them coming into the office horny. So, yes, Bill Clinton, he had an appeal. He had a charm. Now, one of the things I'm curious about, I'm going to do this video. I got to figure out when to launch it. I want to know if people who could go, if you could go back to 2020, would you still vote for who you voted for? So if you voted for Biden, would you still do it? If you voted for Trump, would you still do it? I really want to know from independents who are in swing states, because let's face it, if you were an independent in like Pennsylvania or Georgia, you can see like if the independents voted one way or voted the other, that would have decided the election. Independents in Pennsylvania could have decided the election. Georgia, I'd have to count up the votes, but literally, this was who's got more support, and it came down to such razor thin margins that it would have been interesting to see if people changed their minds going back. And the reason that question is so important is because, well, for 2024, it's a rematch of 2020. So if we see people saying that if they could go back, they would change their vote, then you got to say, well, what would you change? Would you change from Trump to Biden or Biden to Trump? If they're saying they would change from Biden to Trump, Trump's going to win. If they're saying they would change from Trump to Biden, Biden is going to win. It's pretty much that simple. But if everybody votes the exact same way they did last time, same result, Biden will win because if nobody changes, we've seen this exact election already. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I am curious. I get the sense, though, I think that Trump is getting more support, but I don't think he's getting it in the states that matter. Like, I think that Trump will get better turnout in a lot of the states that he's already locked up. So he might get more votes, but if he's getting them he can get 1 million more votes in Texas. Doesn't change how many electoral votes he wins. He can get 1 million more votes in Florida. Doesn't change an outcome. He's got to get votes in swing states. He's got to convert some states, and that's the piece I don't know. That's why I'm curious to know if people are planning on changing their mind. I'm actually probably going to drop that video in the next. Maybe I'll drop that tomorrow because now I really want. Well, we'll see. That one's coming soon. So if you see it, please respond and let me know what state you're in because that's going to be a fun one. Love Miss Maya. LOL. He was sexy back in the 90s. Ha. Love Miss Maya would mess around and be the next Bill Clinton flirt. Bill Clinton is a player. He's out there having fun. So it sounds like Love Miss Maya might end up with some stories about her and bad old Bill. Who knows? We will see. One of the things that's funny about Trump is Trump's PR. I think Trump's PR is much better than Biden's PR. It's kind of funny. Trump can take a story and he can turn it into a positive. Biden can take things that should be a positive and he'll just fumble them. I mean, Trump's PR team is top notch. One of the things I talk about is like this whole, like, we'll use an example here, but like energy. Trump has made a very big deal about like the energy plan and how Trump is pro-U.S. energy and Biden is anti-U.S. energy. I don't think Biden's anti-U.S. energy. He doesn't know how to explain his story. Now with Trump would encourage more drilling. And if he encourages more drilling, that means more U.S. jobs. And who's going to argue with that? I understand the appeal of more U.S. jobs. I like having more U.S. jobs, especially if they pay well. But here's the funny thing. If you look at the biggest oil producers in the world, and I looked this up so I know, Saudi Arabia is not the biggest oil producer in the world. That's what I would have thought before I looked it up. United States is the biggest producer of oil in the world. That shocked me, but I went and looked at the numbers. You can Google that in 20 seconds. And the funny thing is, if you keep drilling into it, we've got 5 years of oil reserves of like they get oil and then they like have to prove it to figure out, okay, how do we process this stuff? So oil reserves where it's processed, it's efficient, the whole thing. We've got 5 years of reserves on hand right now. We've got untested reserves, which means we might even have more, if they go through the process and figure out like how to process it efficiently, we could have 10 years of oil reserves on hand right now. Now, what does that mean? Well, from a drilling standpoint, it means drilling right now isn't urgent. It's beneficial, but it's not urgent. And that's why I talk about the PR, because Trump takes a story like that and he knows how to explain it so that he gets people to rally behind him. It's like American jobs. We need energy. Why wouldn't we do this and help pay Americans better salaries? And everybody can get their head around that. Biden goes these weird directions. He goes, wants to be in the Paris Accord, wants to talk about climate change. It's not a good look to be drilling more when you're suddenly going into conversations about climate change. It's like, okay, what does that have to do with the American people? Like, you have to find a way to tie a story to how it benefits the American people. And that's just where I don't see that happening out of his camp. And I don't understand why they haven't been able to get their heads around this. I think that his immigration approach has not been sold well. I mean, Trump spends immigration, he spends it easily. Let's limit immigration. Let's have stronger borders. We don't want, I mean, and he's right. I don't want to see stories on the news about somebody getting shot by I don't want to see stories on the news about somebody getting shot. But I definitely don't want to see stories on the news about somebody getting shot by an immigrant who was just let in. Nobody likes to see the stories of Americans struggling to pay their bills and people who are newly immigrated coming in and having better room and board than regular Americans. It's like, wait, who are my tax dollars helping? So Trump spins the story in a very easy way for people to understand. Biden never, like, if Biden got into some of the issues, because let's face it, he's letting people in. Make no mistake about it. If you look at our laws on immigration are the same as a lot of other countries' laws. It's not a question of the laws, it's the enforcement. We're not enforcing them. We're letting people in. But he doesn't get into the reasons why. First off, half the immigration coming in is legal, so there's not as much illegal immigration as people might think because he never takes the time to explain that. But then a lot of it is, hey, we've got jobs that people don't want, but that we need to put employees in. People don't want to work long hours at a chicken ranch for minimum wage, but the immigrants will. People don't want to work at some of these crummy jobs for small contractors that don't pay much, but the immigrants will, and we need those jobs filled. He also doesn't get into Social Security. It's like, look, we need to put money into Social Security. Social Security is only set to last for like 20 years. Sure, we can fund it more, down the road, but we've only got 20 years of it. When immigrants come in, illegal immigrants, and they work and their employer is taxed, that means dollars go into Social Security, but they don't get a benefit, so the dollars aren't going out to them. So it's a way to start putting some money into Social Security. He doesn't talk about that. And that's on him. I mean, the story is there. We just talked about it. He could explain, look, this is why we're doing what we're doing. But he doesn't. Trump's PR is excellent. I don't know why Biden hasn't figured that part out yet, but he hasn't. So, he's going to have to live with that. And if Biden loses the election, immigration is going to be what costs him. Because that is the thing that people consistently cite as one of the issues they have with him. His approach to the borders. People do not agree. It's easy to understand why. And I don't really see him working to fix it. However, he is trying to get those swing voters in Michigan, so he might just be playing, he's just playing for the checkmate. He knows if he wins Michigan, he wins the election. So he might not care about all the rest. He's like, I don't care. Michigan. That is my singular focus because that is going to make or break my run this year. Man, we got a comment in. Bother Me None. Welcome, Bother Me None. U.S. Drug Control Agency will move to reclassify marijuana in a histo. It's stupid to cook bread at 350 degrees for 55 minutes when you can just do the math and cook it at 19,250 degrees for 1 minute. Now, okay, let's get away from the bread comment because technically, that doesn't work. I did that as a kid. I looked at a recipe. It's like, oh, cook this at 300 degrees for 30 minutes. It's like, well, what if I cook it at 600 degrees for 15 minutes? Doesn't that cook it faster? Like, nope. Burns the outside, doesn't cook the inside. So you don't get the textures that you're looking for. But there's a point here. We have to take a step back and we have to look at kind of the war on drugs practically. We spend a lot of money in the war on drugs incarcerating people for what are or processing what's essentially misdemeanors. So not getting into whether you should, if you're pro drugs, anti drugs, not getting into that, just getting into how much time is spent processing and chasing down things that are misdemeanors. Now, for me, look, I believe in a strong stance on things. I don't care how few grams of crack you've got, how few grams of heroin you've got. You get caught with that stuff, you go to jail. Hey, shouldn't have been messing with it. But I do understand the standpoint. Somebody had a couple of joints on them, and they're not going to get anything more than a slap on the wrist. So why are we tying up a lot of resources chasing those types of things down? It's like, yeah, okay, I understand the story there. I wouldn't argue that that's a waste of effort. How quickly I mean, we're not going to become Amsterdam, but we do have to think about what we've exposed ourselves to, because we've opened the door a little bit. We said, well, marijuana is going to be legal. So then if marijuana is legal, well, what's the next thing that people start to look at? And you say, well, marijuana is legal. Why don't we legalize this next thing? And then how are we going to decide where to draw the line? I'm curious. It's easy to say draw it at marijuana, but that's like right now, where marijuana is not legal everywhere. When it is legal everywhere, then what do we do? I'm kind of curious about that. I need a sip. So as we're doing that, if you're new to the stream, click like, click subscribe, and click the notification bell, because I do pop-up lives periodically. I don't do them on a set schedule. So if you want to participate and you got the notification bell going, you will be set. However, back to the election, which I am comfortable with how the conversation has shifted, because I talk election more than I probably talk about the election more than I talk about anything, because it's an election year and this is going to affect America. I do think it's funny how politics have kind of left the hands of people. What I mean is, once upon a time, I kind of felt like the American people were going to get to decide who they wanted to have as president. Now it feels like the machine is trying to take the decision about who's going to be president out of the hands of the American people. And I don't agree with that. I don't like how states are trying to figure out whether they can take candidates off the ballot or not. I don't think that's right. And that's, we've had the same processes in place for decades, but for some reason now we want to figure out, can I take Trump off the ballot? Can I take Biden off the ballot? That shouldn't be happening. All of these legal cases that Trump is facing, it's no coincidence that he's facing them right now when they impact his ability to campaign. I understand. Well, this is my hypothesis. Personally, I think that this is payback, because I think that when Trump refused to say Biden won, I think that some people said, you know what? I'm going to get you for this. And he didn't have to say he lost, but at some point it was clear, like, okay, Biden's going to be president. So if Trump had said, look, I don't agree with the way the election was run. I got questions, but in the interest of the country, I want everybody to acknowledge that, Joe Biden is going to be the next president. He didn't have to say he lost, but he could have said something that facilitated more of a peaceful transition of power. He chose not to, and I think that there were people who said, you're going to pay for this. I am going to make sure that When I get the chance to kick you when you're down, I'm going to do it. And I think that's a lot of what he's dealing with now with these cases. It's just people who are saying, now is the time where I can hit you and it hurts. And so that's what I'm going to do. Let's face it, he's the only president who didn't increase his revenue coming out of his term. If you look at, I went back to, how far did I go back? I think I went back as far as Reagan. But if you look at every president, they came into office, they left office, they were a whole lot richer when they left office than when they went in. In particular, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton made a lot of money as president. It's embarrassing how rich he got as president. But every president has done it except Trump. Now that's not, I don't think Trump wouldn't have done it if he had the chance. It's just Trump has had to face a lot of legal issues. He's had a lot of legal battles going all the way back to just before he was running. He was keeping people quiet because he had a lot of issues he had to deal with. So he is in this unique position where he's got the whole machine kind of attacking him and trying to keep him from basically running. That I disagree with. I want to see election night, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and the American people saying, this is who we want as president. And whoever the American people pick, that's who it is. And we run the election. It's clean, it's fair, and the results speak for themselves. That's the way it's supposed to work. It's just that's not the way it's working these days because the politicians have gotten their hands too far into the process, and now things just get weird. So hopefully we can get past all of this. I don't know how many cases Trump has. He's got this. He's got the classified documents. He's got like 2 or 3 more cases he's going to have to deal with. And I think they're going to just hit him with them sequentially. So, this is going to be the long, messy process for him to deal with. And we're going to have to see what happens. Financially, I think he'll be okay. Sure, he's got to pay out a lot. I mean, Trump was worth, he was worth $3 billion. Now, he's had to pay out on these cases. He had to pay out like $500 million and $600 million. Okay, that's not small change to anybody. I don't care who you are. $600 million. Don't know what he's going to have to pay out on Stormy Daniels, but what he's got going for him is he just launched Truth Social, his social media platform. Now, he can't sell the shares yet. They went IPO. His stake in that is worth like $3 billion. Now, I don't know where it's going to end up. I don't think it's going to end up there. When you IPO, you get your stock takes off, but then, the market overcorrects and finally it kind of steadies out. So he might only get $2 billion if he decides to sell it all. That's still a big chunk of change. Moral of the story is these legal cases are not going to ruin Trump. He's not going to be broke when he's done. He's got plenty of money. But they are taking time away from other things he could be doing. That's really the impact of this, is it keeps him distracted. It also keeps him in the news, though. So where is it going to go? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. And maybe down the road, we'll be saying, you know what? Trump beat all these cases. He didn't really pay out that much. And that's just going to bolster his support because a lot of people like the fact that Donald Trump is treated as kind of like the bad guy in the movie. And he keeps overcoming. And it's like, this is why we like him. He keeps overcoming. Democrats kind of shoot themselves in the foot sometimes with their strategy. I am curious to know, I guess, who's going to be voting by mail this time versus who's going to be voting live. Mail helped Biden big time in 2020. They both saw a surge in their votes. Both, like when Trump and Hillary ran, they both had about 65 million votes. Last election, Trump got up to 75 million. Biden got up to close to 80 million. And a big part of that was because he had mail-in votes. Mail-in voting overwhelmingly favored Biden, but he's the one who told his constituents to vote by mail. So that's not really a surprise. Like he said, vote by mail. Trump said, go to the polls. I expect more mail-in votes. Biden won't have that advantage this time. And the other thing, though, I think it's small, is this whole silly TikTok nonsense. Don't know why Biden is voting to well, I know why Biden is saying that he's voting to ban TikTok or force a sale. I don't know why he's really doing it. Personally, I think Trump has a better position on that because Trump is saying he likes the social media platform. Now he's got a conflict of interest because he owns a social media platform, so it's hard to take him at face value when he's saying this. But basically, banning TikTok isn't going to do anything for national security. Okay. Most of the social media platforms that exist, the big ones, are owned by America. TikTok's the only one that's not. But let's face it, if we're talking about somebody using an app to spy on you, well, guess what? Most people have like 100 apps on their phone. And most people don't check the terms of service when they sign up for new apps. So you don't know what you're signing up for. And there are apps that will check your contacts, use your phone, use your microphone, use your camera. Apps will do all sorts of things. And people just click and give it access. TikTok's not doing anything special. And if we're really worried about China, well, guess what? Those Apple phones people are walking around with were made in China. The Lenovo phones people are walking around with are made in China. So why are we worried about the software on the app? Well, we're not worried about the software on the phones themselves. I mean, granted, Apple is not a Chinese company, but the moral of the story is made in China, software made in China. If they want to build spyware into something, well, they got plenty of opportunities to do it, plenty of other ways. And banning TikTok isn't going to solve anybody's problems. We've just turned it into this weird political talking point that's ineffective. TikTok's not going to just sit around. They're going to sue, countersue. And so we're talking at least 5 years before this can come to resolution, which means if Biden, focuses on this won't come to resolution before he's out of office. If Trump wins the election, he's just going to kill this issue right off the bat. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to pursue this. It's like, what are we trying to go after? Because there are a million reasons why this will not work. And there's only like 1 or 2 reasons why it would. But even there, you have to say, well, why bother? That's my take on it. You guys might be in different camps on that. But we'll see. Anyway, it is like a little after 9:15. And I am going to call it a night because I have a big day ahead of me tomorrow. I'll be back. Click like, click subscribe, click the notification bell so that you can be here when I'm back on for live streams. Feel free to drop a comment. And other than that, the last good man in Jersey, signing out.